believe it that there is already an updated BMW 6 GT. It feels like it was only yesterday or very recently that we were driving the 6 GT on these very roads. But truth be told, the first time we drove the 6 GT on Indian roads was in 2018. Of course, you have to remove 2020 from all calculations because of the pandemic. But if you think otherwise, if you think that the 6 GT has been around for a while, let me refresh your memory. The 5 GT was replaced by the 6 GT, a car that is roomier and longer thanks to the platform and the wheelbase that it shares with the standard 7 Series or the standard wheelbase 7 Series. The one that we get is the long wheelbase 7 Series. But in terms of its overall form, it's that 4-door coupe form which makes sure that it competes with cars like the CLS. But at the same time, with the kind of space that it offers and with the kind of competitive price tag that it has, it actually also goes up against the Mercedes-Benz E-Class, the long wheelbase version which is sold in India. And that long wheelbase E-Class was also updated recently. Like this arch rival, the 6 GT2 has gone for a sharper design. But when BMW says sharp, they usually mean very sharp. But this is a facelift after all. So while the lines of the bodywork or the silhouette of the car are pretty much unchanged, the nose now has a much sleeker look than before. The grille is also edgier and the headlamps have a new detailing. Before Corona became the dreaded keyword, BMW replaced its Corona rings, its signature Corona rings, with what looked like hooks. And now those hooks have been replaced with L-shaped DRLs. Looks a bit Jaguar XF in my opinion. But the blue detailing that you see inside of those headlamps, which are exclusive to the M Sport trim, it tells you that these are actually BMW's state-of-the-art laser lights. They work exceptionally well and the illumination is so good that it's allowed them to get rid of the fog lamps in the bumper. That is also the reason why you can't option the laser lights on any other trim that doesn't have them by default. The absence of conventional fog lamps has in turn allowed the bumpers to have more edgy cuts and creases that impart a sharper, low-slung, lean-forward stance. Certainly looks a lot more menacing than a crouching cat, don't you think? BMW also has some really good-looking wheel choices on offer, and on this M Sport trim, you can also make a choice between 19 and 20-inch rims. If you're okay with the kind of harsh ride quality that will bring along with it. You can also spec the brake calipers to be in blue or red if you so desire. There are new color options too, and the one seen here is the carbon black, which has a tinge of blue in broad daylight. Looks quite good. The rear end of the 6 GT sees minor revisions to the bumper and the new trapezoidal exhaust pipes, which complement the edgy design of the car. The updated design actually does very little to cut the visual bulk of the rear end. Hey BMW.
Hello.
I think you and I need to go to a gym.
Sorry, I didn't hear that properly.
That's the kind of response I give people when they fat shame me and give me such awful recommendations. But she has learned some new tricks. For example, hey BMW, can you engage the sport mode?
The sport mode is already on.
Oh, of course, the sport mode is already on because I was driving around winding roads, but you get the drift. You can select the different driving modes using the voice commands. Now you don't have to search for the buttons. You don't have to have a drive selector. Of course, those redundancy buttons are still there, but you can now do it with the voice commands as well. You can also use the voice commands to lower the windows or open the sunroof and all those kind of things, which is good stuff. Now, speaking of modes, as before, there are the same modes. You have the comfort, the sport, the adaptive modes, and comfort also comes with two separate modes within it. There's the regular comfort mode and then there's the comfort plus, because this at the end of the day is also a car that is meant to chauffeur people. So you have an additional, a more comfortable mode that softens the suspension. Speaking of which, as before, you have air suspension in all the four corners, and the nature of the air suspension or the damping levels obviously change with the change in the driving modes. Well, this is the 630i, so as before, it gets the same 2-litre engine, not a 3-litre, and it puts out about 258 PS of power. That's quite good. It's 400 Newton meters of torque. So those figures, including the acceleration figures, in fact, haven't really changed much as compared to the outgoing model, because the tuning changes aren't really there. That engine was always BS6 ready when it came out in 2018, and that tuning has been sort of carried forward into this car as well. And that's not it. If you're the kind of person who is going to spend equal time in the front as well as the rear, in that case, I think the 6GT could make a little bit more sense if you're okay with that kind of space compared to what you get in the E-Class. Because if you are, this car has a much tighter body control the moment you put it in the sportier modes. And it's a typical BMW after that. It's a rear-wheel driven car, of course, but even in terms of everything that it does with its suspension tuning, with the way it controls the body, with the kind of powertrain responses that it has around the twisties, it's just brilliant. When you're behind the wheel, the other thing that you will enjoy is just how nice the steering wheel feels. It is nice and light when you're in the Eco Pro or the Comfort modes, and it weighs up quite nicely when you are in the sportier modes. Then you also have a nice brake pedal feel. It's nice and progressive. The braking is very confident whether you are driving in a spirited manner or just ambling around town. And finally, you have a lovely gearbox. The 8-speed ZF transmission has always been a lovely operator, a predictable gearbox at that. And even around winding roads, you don't often need to use the paddle shifters. But well, if you want that manual control, it's always there, and that just makes it a lot more enjoyable to drive. I also had someone ferry me in the rear seat of the 6GT because, well, this does go up against the E-Class long wheelbase, and things are actually quite good in here. Though the seats aren't as luxuriously appointed as the E-Class, they can be reclined by a little, come with electronically operated window blinds, and get 2 entertainment screens by default on the top trims. So if you usually have a dilemma choosing between the rear seat or the driver's seat, the 6GT is the car that will pamper you either way. It is priced rather well too, comes with quite a few engine options to choose from, and delivers on the promise of being a GT.